What's that? Howls from the woods. Movement under the water. Something you notice on the corner of your eye when you look, it's gone. This is Cryptid Talk. Hello, everyone. How is everyone doing? Oh, we're off to a great start. how's everyone doing today? I hope everyone had a good week. And I know, I'm now just starting to feel like I'm catching myself now that I say that every single time of like, oh, everyone had a good week. Now ready for the weekend. Woo, yeah, I know. Broken record. But I mean, hey, it's finally Friday. Work week's over. Now the weekend begins. And then you get to enjoy it however you see please. Everyone enjoys their days off very differently from each other. But, that's just me. Hold on a second. Sorry. Okay. So, and yeah, I hope everyone's having a good weekend. Before we start this week's episode, I just want to let you know on the the day, the Saturday after this comes out. So in your time, tomorrow, of the day of this episode coming out, I will be heading to an area that has supposedly had some sort of Bigfoot activity in the past. I was looking up on some BFRO reports and saw that there's some stuff going on. There was some stuff going on, and then even sometime later when the person the woman talked to some people later on in the area. Apparently, activity was still happening around that area. Looked around the area a little bit, and it's pretty interesting. It's about an hour from me, so think we're gonna head up there and see what happens. Obviously, no guarantee, but hey, if there's like a lot of times when they say with Bigfoot, if Bigfoot travel through an area or go to an area, they will they going by observation rarely ever go to an area just once. If they pass through it, they pass through it multiple times or will come back to that spot. So I don't know. Fingers crossed. There's a creek nearby the area, so possible tracks, food, water source, and I don't know. Who knows? It would be pretty cool if go in there and something happens. But I will report back afterwards, and I'll let everyone know how if anything happened. And then one more thing before we start today's episode. Um, I thought about it, and I have a list. Got a list of cryptids that I wrote down of possible future topics. All right. Slow down the breathing a little bit. And so, I'm going to, sometime this weekend, I'm going to make a poll on the Facebook page. Can't do it on YouTube yet, because apparently to make a poll on YouTube, you need to have at least 500 subscribers. But on Facebook, you can do it, whenever. So on the Facebook page, sometime this weekend, I'm going to make a poll of not gonna be it's not gonna be all of these suggestions. I might do like half, so half this one time and half another time, but to for the listeners to pick what the next episode will be about. And so yeah, so if you haven't already, follow the Facebook page, facebook.com/cryptotalk. Follow it there, and that's where the poll will be. I'll see if I can make a post on YouTube to like remind people to head that way if you're not followed on the Facebook page. But make sure you follow the Facebook page. That's where some interesting stuff will be. But that's where I will put the poll, and it'll just be one of those like here are the choices. Click which one you want to vote for, and then before I record the next episode, I will take a look and see what it is, and I'll pick the winner. So if you haven't already, follow the Facebook page, facebook.com/cryptidtalk. And I think with that, let's get on. Let's get on today's episode. So obviously, you've already saw the title, so you already know what it is. But today's episode is is the Lake Champlain monster, also known as Champ, or also known as the American Loch Ness monster, which is there's a little bit of a interesting comparison to the two of them, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So yes, Champ was is known as the American Loch Ness monster. Obviously, compared to the queen of the monsters, Nessie, who first made her technical public appearance to the world, before Champ, and then of course then Champ came a little later. But let's just let's get right into it. If for bleh. let's slow down. For people who don't know, Lake Champlain is a big body of water in between New York and Vermont, upstate New York and Vermont, which interestingly enough, when I actually read it, when I was researching a bit more into this, I saw that a part of the lake actually does go into Canada, into Quebec. Now, the area there is not called Lake Champlain; it is called something else. But it's pretty interesting that it does connect up there a bit more. So, but we'll get into that a little bit. So, okay, yeah. So, yeah, when I was writing down the notes for this episode, I kind of did them in a. Sorry, I'm just testing the distance of the mic and everything like that. So I wrote the the order of my notes a little weird this time by accident without really realizing it. But Champ, the Lake Champlain monster, it is pretty much as people describe it, looks just like Nessie, and aka a plesiosaur and stuff like that. There are some reports saying that it's 25 to 30 feet long. Some stories say it's smaller. So their general size normally seems to be 25 to 30, but some people think it actually, some reports seeing it being smaller and stuff along those sides. And stuff that's in water is, unless you're able to get a really good, clear look at the creature of whatever you're seeing in the water, it can be kind of hard, to really gauge the size of something when it's underwater, because you won't be able to get a full picture of the thing you're seeing. So you can see, like, okay, I can see 10 here's 10 feet of the creature, but in reality though there might be another 10 feet under there that you can't see, so it's actually 20, and so it's kind of hard to tell the actual size of things and stuff like that when it comes to them being submerged or covered in water in some form or fashion. The Lake Champlain itself is 125 miles long, or 201 kilometers for our other listeners, and it's also 400. And its deepest part is around 400 feet deep, or 122 meters. So 400 feet, that's not bad. It's not obviously not like the biggest lake, the deepest lake in the world, but hey, that's not bad. I mean, you could definitely, you could definitely hide some things in like 400 feet of water, but definitely really cool nonetheless. Lake Champlain is just a very it's a very interesting lake, just because also how long it's also been here, which we'll get into in a little bit. But before we get too any deep further into this, Champ, I love Champ. Champ is probably up there in like my top 5 favorite cryptids, especially in the US, because there are a lot of lake monsters, sea monsters around in and around the US. Some have a very similar shape to them. Some have something different. Some of them look like they're like copy and paste of the same creature. And so, but I think out of all of them, I think the most merit and the most just the most interesting out of all of them would probably have to be Champ, because there's like unfortunately, like a lot of cryptids, especially water-based cryptids, there is not a lot of evidence. Now, the evidence we have for Champ, we'll get into in a moment because I believe it's one of the best evidence of a cryptid ever since the probably after being the biggest one, being of course being the PG film. But this I would consider this a hard second for sure. But we'll get into that. So Champ is it's just a very interesting cryptid because again it's nothing special. It's just like the generic plesiosaur lake monster kind of thing. So it's not like it really has anything that sets it apart because I honestly say it kind of has like a copy and paste thing to Nessie in a way in its general shape and look and everything like that. But so very cool, very interesting, and honestly just an overall very interesting cryptid. So, the stories of Champ go back actually pretty far. The stories of Champ actually go back to when the lake was actually first discovered in 1609. So, yeah, 1609. Years, 300 years or so since the picture of Nessie really started becoming a thing. So there are earlier so there even though there are some even earlier reports of Nessie there, it's like a lot of stories actually were more worldwide of at least more well known of Champ before accidentally Nessie. So even though Champ was actually around first in a way, people always said oh it's the American Loch Ness monster kind of thing, making it sound like Nessie was first and then Champ. But so kind of interesting how some Champ stuff actually kind of happened before Nessie, even though the fake Sturgeon's photo came out, and then the big evidence that came of Champ many years later, which we'll talk about right now. 1977, Sandra Mancy and her family were along the water's edge, enjoying a nice, peaceful day. The kids were playing in the shallows and on the shore, just throwing rocks into the lake and enjoying the weather and having a good time. When all of a sudden there's a disturbance in the water, and out of it comes this creature with a long neck, with a head at the end and a body poking out of the water. The parents call back the kids, getting them away from the water to keep them safe. And Sandra takes her little camera and takes one picture. This one picture, I believe, is it. This is like it's like what she said she saw that was moving in the water. She captured it on camera. Now, it is unfortunate that she didn't have a camera. Cameras were a thing back then. But of course, because obviously, the PG film was filmed, before this. So, but of course, cameras were also expensive back then, and it's not like you easily just carry them around of like, oh, let's go, let me put it in my pocket, and like, oh, a cool moment's coming up. Oh, let me record my video. It's like having it and then carrying it around for most people was not a common thing. Like Robert Pattinson and Bob Gimlin were a little different, but that's a whole other different story and everything. So she took this one picture, and it's one of the most interesting pictures of all time. And of course, it's also one of those things of like, oh my gosh, if only this picture was a was a video. If it was a video, it would be the most. There would be, in my personal opinion, there would be no doubt of the creature's existence. So I'm looking at the picture right now, and it's fascinating. It's amazing. Like that is the creature. Like I've seen so many different shows like Monster Quest and other shows. Try looking at the Champ photo and analyzing it, and Obviously, the biggest thing that everyone comes up with is that, oh, it's just some logs and some, some wood that is, floating on top of the surface. And sure, I bet some lake monster sightings, even of Champ and at Lake Champlain and Lochness, I would not be surprised if there were some cases where some misidentifications of trees and branches happened. Sure, but not here. Not this photo. This, like, I've seen someone trying to, make a little diagram of, oh, this is actually what you're seeing. This is the branch and how it would look and everything like that. And no, to me, it doesn't make sense. Like, this is a living creature just by looking at it, the shiny gloss on it, of its skin and everything like that. Sure, people can argue, that, like, oh, that's just obviously that's just like the shiny wood on it, stuff like that. It's like, no, like, in a lot of cases, wood necessarily isn't really shiny that often, really, when it's wet, to a point. Not like where this, where, it's like it's literally reflecting the sun's, light and everything else like that. But like that is the creature. It's right there in this photo, and it's spectacular. And if only this was a video, because this, like, a lot of lake monster pictures and that are out there in the internet and everything, you really don't see them. You see like this little blip, or like just something small. But we have a full body, a full neck out of the water, and a head with the creature turning its head. If that was a video and we saw this thing actually move, there would be no, like, obviously there will always be skeptics. There will always be like, oh, that's not real, it's not real, that's real. Like, but to me, what I think a lot of people, like a lot of doubters today, if this was recorded on video and we saw the full motion of this creature and everything else like that, it it, it would be groundbreaking. It would be up there as important as the PG film, on just, and how the importance and just how much it's showing. But of course, PG film was film, and this was, a picture. So obviously, with a picture, we can only take so much. Now, the other interesting thing about the photo is that obviously the speculation. Now, the biggest question, is like, how big was it? Now, I couldn't see, like right off the top of my head of, how big she thought the. I'll make sure I got everything here. Yeah, of how big she thought the creature was when she was recording it. I'm trying to see if I can find it. And this little thing right here, there's really not much said about it. But the interesting thing that is very interesting is that the photo, where the photo was taken, the water around there was actually around like 14 feet deep. So that's actually just around the size as a diving pool, as Olympic sized diving pool. How deep it can get. They might be a little bit deeper, but yeah, so around that size. So the water wasn't tremendously deep. Now, obviously, of course, people wouldn't be able to stand there or anything else like that. But but the fact that it was in that shallow of water during the daytime, mind you. This was also during the day, so the sun was out and shining and everything else like that. And that's how they were able to get such a good look at the creature, and how the picture came out so well as it did. And so, okay, so you're thinking, all right, well, why would something that may want to be, hidden, be in shallow water? Well, like a lot of creatures, especially, in like the oceans and stuff like that. The reason why it probably came to, the shallows was probably look for food during certain times of the day, and no matter what body of water you are, if you're at the beach, or you're in a lake or a river or stuff like that. Certain times of the day, the fish are actually close to the shore, because for the pretty much the food chain, there's food there, food there, which and everything like that. But now, you could argue the fact that it was probably there, looking for food as well. And of course, but unfortunately, after this photo was taken, she wasn't able to get another photo of it because the thing then went down to the water and was gone. And it's like, if only we had a camera, and if something that's why I always tell people, or I always scream at people and pictures and stuff. They're like, because again, modern day, it's like, why is this not a video? And I'm telling you, my dear listeners, right now, if you are ever in the woods anywhere and you ever see any sort of creepy thing, Bigfoot, sea monster, anything, take a video. As long as you can hold your hand steady and be able to, hold it well, take a video. Video which shows so much more than a picture ever can. The picture can show a moment, but you're like, okay, but what happened after this moment or before this moment? What else kept happening? And a lot of times with things that are in the moment, most people just take one picture, or just maybe some, but not enough. But most of the time, it's only just one picture, boom, and then that's it. And we never know what else more happens. I'm like, why? So yeah, dear listeners, you see something, record it with video. It would be so much better. Now, if you're maybe a track or something like that, sure, yeah, take pictures and videos. You want to take pictures and videos of it in multiple different angles and stuff like that. If it's a track case, but yeah, always take video. I've learned from people's past mistakes of only taking a picture when they easily could have taken a video and gotten so much more information out of it. So, do it. Video. Whoa. Okay. So yeah, so the picture itself is very interesting, and I would say go look up the picture and take a look at it yourself. Or you know what? I will post this in the Facebook page tomorrow after the episode comes out, and I will let people just be the judge. Whether you've seen the picture or not, this is your first time or you haven't seen it before, I'm gonna post a picture and then I want to hear your people's opinion about it. So when I put up there on the Facebook page, facebook.com/cryptidtalk, you let me know what you think of the photo. God, I love this photo. It's just so unique. Oh, actually, before we move away from this, there was a show. I forget. There was a few different shows that have done stuff with Champ, and apparently after doing some, because there's really not much to really try to compare the size of the creature, but apparently the Champ's size actually may have, after doing some measurements and stuff like that, they actually estimated that Champ may have actually only been between 6 to 12 feet long. Not like the 25, 30 feet that a lot of people say. But, if there's more than one or stuff like that, or who knows. But, so it's very interesting that they believe Champ being a lot smaller than the bigger size a lot of people are saying. But, again, who's to say? Because, again, there could be more than one and stuff like that. All right, so we're done with the photo for now. Okay. So, obviously the photo shocked the world and made everyone talk and everyone pretty much want to go to Lake Champlain. After this moment, Lake Champlain got very, very popular, where they have a Champ festival. They have, I think one of their local high school teams, has their mascot Champ. Champ is like the biggest advertisement mascot of that upper part of New York and Vermont. Just everything. It's like Champ Central up there. Champ is their celebrity, and the merchandise and everything around it is just crazy. So if you're ever up in that part, you ever visit there, go do it. I've only ever seen Lake Champlain once from a distance. I was going to upstate New York with family up to Lake Placid, and I told my parents, hey, can you guys drop me off here and come back for me? And they're like, no. Or why? It's oh, I want to go look for a lake monster. No. I'm aw. So unfortunately, my parents didn't let me stay there. How old was I? I was at least a teenager by that point, so I was probably somewhere between I don't know, 15, 16, around that point. And no, my parents wouldn't allow me to stay there for like a week or so while they go to Lake Placid and everything like that. So, eh, you can do what you can do. What you can do, you can do. So that's the only time I've actually ever seen the lake itself. But someday I will go, and someday I will go and see the lake myself, hopefully. And maybe I'll get one. People get lucky. So after that, sometime reports of Champ come in. People seeing it. Said they saw something. Whether or not it really was Champ, hard to say because misidentifications can happen and stuff like that. But there wasn't any real big news from Lake Champlain up until 2003. I think I even remember watching a TV special about this, where some scientists went into went to the lock. This is in Lochness. Went to the lake and pretty much was recording sound in the lake, seeing if they could record anything, just what would happen. And hold on a second. Sorry about that. And as they are, they're just slowly cruising around the lake, they get a hit. They hear something. And to them, it pretty much sounds like an echo. Like an echo, or like an echo location, or an echo sound that whales would make. Or more particularly, it sounded something kind of close to like an orca. But of course, that's not possible. Whales, there are no sea mammals like that live in the lake or anything like that. But they are clearly hearing something somewhere in the lake that was able to produce this sound, and it blew their minds. They're sitting there and they're like giving each other gasping looks, and they're like, "Do you hear this? Oh my god!" And goddamn, and yeah, so they're hearing these sounds coming from the lake, and it's spectacular. There should be no animal, mammal wise or anything, that should be able down there making that sound. And yet, hold on a second. And so, they all start freaking out. Of course, there's obviously going to be speculation with stuff like this, and it's like, oh, it could have been this, it could have been that, or it could have been like a whale, or but like there is nothing there, and it is just very interesting that. Sorry, I accidentally kept hitting the mute button on my microphone, but that's what makes it so interesting that I can't remember offhand if Loch Ness has had anything similar to that. As far as I'm aware, I don't think so. But I can't remember. I feel like there was something, but I think I'm only thinking of Champ. But it's interesting though, like showing that there is some sort of creature down there making some sort of echolocation sound in an area where there shouldn't be anything down there doing it, and yet they're getting a recording of something making like an orca-like sound back. Now they're not orcas. People would know that there are orcas there because of of their the orcas are a creature that makes themselves known, and when they're there, people know that they're there. But it's just an interesting story. It's such an interesting thing of having something like this happen there, where the last big thing that happened was the photo in 1977. And now in 2003, they now have this possible recording of it doing some sort of sound. Why was it doing it? Who knows? Was it looking for a mate, or echolocation to find food, or something along those lines? I don't know, but it's just very fascinating that they got something like this. Is like Champlain. Champlain, the 25 like Okay, no. Okay, I'm not going to look too deeply into that. I was just quickly looking up because I'm surprised and looking into this earlier of how the visibility in Lake Champlain is. Because obviously, Loch Ness, the visibility there is terrible. From the peat moss and all, and the runoff that comes off the nearby hills around there, you can barely see a few feet in front of you. That's how bad the visibility there is in Loch Ness. I think the visibility in Lake Champlain is better, not tremendously, but better than Lake Ben Loch Ness, that's for sure. I think you at least be able to see at least 10, maybe 20 feet. But Loch Ness, So the sound is very interesting. And of course, and fun fact, the sighting that would happen in 1609 by the man who was named, the lake was named after, Samuel de Champlain. It was the one to discover the lake, and also that's how the name got named after him. And he recounts a story. I can't remember if I saved it. No, I did not. Of the man himself. Ooh, wait, hold on. I want to make sure like this. Okay, here we go. Okay, I found it. So, if I am reading this correctly, yes, this was quoted from the man from Samuel himself when he initially crowned a creature. Quote: There is also a great abundance of fish, of many varieties. Among others, one called by the savages of the country chow faru. Again, this was, I don't know, the savages comment was made from back then, which varies in length, and the largest being, its people told me, 8 or 10 feet long. I saw some 5 foot long, which were as large as my thigh, the head being as big as my 2 fists, with a snout 2.5 feet long, and a double row of very sharp and dangerous teeth. Its body is, in shape, very much like of a pike, but is armed with scales so strong and a poniard could not pierce them. Its color is silver gray. End quote. So, actually, hold on a second, because I'm just reading something. What fish live in Lake Champlain? Do 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 do. Come on, fish, fish, fish. Okay, here we go. Nope, that's not what I'm looking for. Come on, what fish? Yeah, let's see. Trout. Rock bass. Okay. So, okay. So the interesting thing that they talk about later, that the description of of this fish thing that they saw, like these armored scales, the chirafu refers to a gar or gar pike, or especially the long nosed gar. Now, have you ever seen a picture of gar? Not all gar are as crazy looking, but the biggest known species of gar is the alligator gar in the south, and they are unfortunately blamed for a possible lot of actual alligator attacks back then, and a lot, and when all you see like this scary looking fish. Yeah, it is a very scary looking fish. It is a fierce fish. And yeah, sure, it was short with a fish like that, it could be dangerous in some way, but not as dangerous as like alligators and stuff like that, which unfortunately a lot of these bigger gar species actually start getting eliminated down the south. But regardless, so they are, so this person's the description of the fish kind of sounds very similar to a gar-like species. Now, I just looked up what fish live there, and there actually really aren't any gar species that live there, or at least maybe not anymore. Maybe at one time, maybe they did. But definitely interesting, because yeah, alligator gars, I don't know if all gars, but alligator gars have a hard very hard scales that kind of resemble like an alligator. It's like their hard skin, and so I can kind of see they look like armor in a way too. Now, when they were talking about the armor of this thing and the size of it, there was one fish in particular that came to mind, and that was of some, like it was a Oh my god, my brain is a sturgeon. Because sturgeon are an ancient species of fish that have very hard scales that look like armor. But of course, the thing that made me think like, oh, probably not that was because they don't have teeth. They are, besides flopping about, like when they're being angled at you, they're being hooked and stuff like that. They're a very general species of fish. They don't attack people. All they pretty much have is like a little sucker mouth that they use to suck up creatures off the floor of the seabed of the lake bed. But that's it. Yeah, there's no teeth. So it's very interesting that these creatures that he saw might be these very big species of possible gar in some way. But of course, also seeing the creature itself when we saw it itself originally. But that's not the only interesting thing. There was also it I feel like this one isn't as talked about as much, but one woman swears on her life that she lives on Lake Champlain. A woman who lives on Lake Champlain. I can't remember if it was over 2 nights or with at least the span of a week. This woman saw not one, but two creatures coming from the lake. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, one night she heard some noise, and as she looked outside, she saw this tall creature under the lamppost. Looked like like a plesiosaur like dinosaur. The broad body, broad body, broad body, long neck that goes to a little head and flippers, as it crosses under there and went off in a direction. She was dumbfounded by this creature. I think she said it was more like a greenish color. It was like she's the fact that she saw possibly Champ on outside of the water was astounding. It doesn't end there. The next day or some days after that, she saw another one. Or she saw it again, but no, it wasn't again. This was a different one. It was the same thing, traveled the same path the last one took, but it was a different color and it was smaller. That was the one thing that she very specified, that the sizes of the creature was different. It wasn't the same size as the first one that she saw previously, but this was its own separate thing. It was also a different color. I think it was something like a brown, but the colors might have been reversed. But both creatures that this woman saw were different, and the sizes were different as well. This one was smaller, which is mind-boggling. The fact that this woman saw not one but two of these creatures, for why traveling on land and where they went and where, like, I have no idea, because I don't know what side of they were on. Was on the Vermont side or the New York side, and stuff like that. But the fact that this woman saw two creatures on traveling on land from the lake going somewhere else is incredible. It's an amazing story, and it's like, and she swears on her life too that she saw it, and it's like, man, that is astounding. There's only been like maybe not even a handful of stories like of Nessie being on land. There might be like one, maybe two. I think really only one's a real story of it, but the fact that this woman saw these things crossing her property under a lamppost where she was able to get a good look at it, it's mind-boggling. And all I can say is lucky person. Really, really lucky person. I wish I was able to see it myself. And it's just astonishing. So the other interesting thing is that, like, the whole. John, reverse that. Make sure I'm not missing anything else. And I think even to this day, there are still sightings of Champ. There's one that showed a possible video of it swimming alongside the boat. I forgot to watch that video beforehand. I'll have to look at it later to see how good or decent it is. But it's Champ. Like, now, the source I'm looking at right now said one of the last reported sightings was in 2018, but I'm pretty sure there probably were more of it since then. Because they're like, for Bigfoot, for example, there's a lot of these sightings of Bigfoot that are never brought to the public, or or they just don't tell anyone, because unfortunately the whole thing with scrutiny and stuff like that, or like they have nothing to prove from telling people. Which, hey, I can respect that. Like, if you saw something, you're like, I don't need to tell anyone. It's like, and that's that's your choice, of course. I'm not going to judge you for a choice like that, because if it may or may not impact your life in any sort of way whatsoever. But it's very interesting that this woman saw, two of these creatures, which shows that there are more than one, and you could probably argue that there had to be some sort of breeding pair and stuff like that. But, like, how does that work? And like obviously there's, because one, where people are still trying to prove the whole thing that this creature even exists or not, or anything like that. So even if it does exist, there's no possible way we can even comprehend the whole thing of it. How can it breed and stuff like that? Yeah, I'm messing with you. And so that's not that. That's like a topic that we can't even comprehend for like a while. The best thing that we can really do is just first trying to prove the creatures exist, and then go from there. But I mean, we haven't found anything conclusive yet, but we'll get there. We'll get there. Like, how we'll get there, because things in water, obviously not as bad as in the ocean, but lakes and big lakes like Lake Champlain and stuff like that are still hard enough as it is. Now, I wasn't able to find anything too crazy like it, like Loch Ness, because Loch Ness, there's so much information about Loch Ness of having like the underwater caves and possible links to the ocean and stuff like that. I couldn't really find that much about Lake Champlain. As far as I'm aware, it's just a pretty normal lake. Nothing that crazy about it or anything else like that. But so let's rewind a little bit back to the beginning when I mentioned that I was a little surprised that Lake Champlain does step into Canada. Now again, it's not called Lake Champlain in the Canadian part, but still the fact that it still does go in there is still interesting enough. So out of curiosity, I wanted to see, like, where does the water come from? Like, does Lake Champlain have any route at all to the ocean? And after looking into it on Google Maps and everything else like that, I did find out that yes, Lake Champlain does have a route to the ocean. It's a bit of a ways, but at some point, yes, it will get to the ocean. So when you go all the way up to the northern part of Lake Champlain, you start getting into Canada. It starts to narrow off into a, okay. Bear with me, and hopefully I pronounced this correctly. Richele, Richel Richelieu River, something like that. I probably butchered that. Hopefully one of those was right. But it does feed off into this one river. Now, the one cool thing that I actually just recently discovered that Google Maps can do is that you actually can. There's a little measuring device, and I've always wanted a measuring device like that, but I finally figured out how to make it work. So some parts of the river were, because I tried to measure, like, okay, how wide is this part? Okay, the length of this river, the width of this part of the river is about I think it was like 1,500 feet. So okay, not bad. Like 1/5 of a mile in some parts there, and then I saw in certain parts that its width, and some of its narrow parts was around like 400 feet. So much smaller. And then I thought okay, and the deepest depths of it do vary greatly. The deepest part of the river being 79 feet, but the shallowest being only 6.5 feet. So it's not that deep, but if it's wide enough, and depending on you travel and stuff like that, you could travel through there undetected in some form or fashion, especially if you try getting as close to the bottom of it as you can. Now, I can't say that and I'm only taking a guess, and like, so, but okay. But then once it travels through there, It then opens up into the St. Lawrence River, which then leads all the way out to the ocean. So the chances of it are low, but because the only thing I don't know is it all river all along there? Are there any dams along it? There's some unknowns I do not have, or I do not know. So I can't say for sure that this is 100% guarantee. It's like, oh yeah, it's definitely possible for it to travel from the ocean and stuff like that. Because that's the argument that people try making about Loch Ness, that some of these sightings of Nessie might actually just be seals that have came in from the ocean. No, I don't believe that's the case, or at least they don't believe it's the case, because there are some parts that are not there are less river, like there are rivers, but like they're way too shallow for anything to transport from without being noticed. A lot of rocky areas and areas that are way too dangerous, or not dangerous, but way too tough for it to traverse. But that's the theory to support that fact, at least for seals, because seals are not the best at traveling on some parts of land, especially over rock and long distances and stuff like that. So, but there is a possibility, because there are sightings of, like, if you mentioned, if you listen to from I think 2 episodes ago when I talked about sea monsters. There are similar creatures like Nessie that are seen in different lakes and oceans and rivers, all over the world, especially in the oceans. So it's kind of interesting where people are like, oh my god, I just saw Nessie off of here. It's like, wait, how you saw Nessie though? That's Nessie is like all the way over. Oh, it was Nessie. Nessie's like thousands of miles over there. How can you see it there if you're over here? Like all these things of saying that, oh, I saw this, saw it. And it's like, so I'm not saying it's for certain, but there is a possibility that maybe it could be possible. There, like in Loch Ness and other parts, there are salmon that do travel into the loch, and so obviously there is, and for the food source. Now there are no from what I saw, I don't believe there's any salmon that are in Lake Champlain, but same general idea. So, but the amount of food that is there could possibly support that. And so now, of course, some of the theories, like, it's like, like the sticks and wood and stuff like that, because when wood decays, the gas is released is what makes it come up to the water. So there could be a log that's in the bottom of the lake, and then all of a sudden the gas is released and it floats up to the ocean all of a suddenly, and people think, oh my god, it just came out of nowhere, and it's just this whole thing that's just floating there, and like stuff like that, and like, oh, it vanished and stuff, and then vanished. And sure, again, there are going to be misidentifications of cryptids, of lake monsters and stuff like that. But does that mean people are lying? No. Could there be some? Sure. But a lot of people are just misidentifying things, and that's okay. Misidentification things happen, as long as to a point where you really realize, if there are some people who are told, like, oh yeah, that's a misidentification. They're like, no, it isn't. Like, they won't accept them. Some people are like, oh, it really is. Like, oh, okay, I was mistaken and stuff like that. And it's okay. It's okay to be mistaken about things and stuff like that. Nothing to not gonna don't need to harass the people or shun them just because they made a little mistake. It happens. Especially some of the biggest cryptozoologists and researchers in the world have thought something was real, but actually turned out that it was actually a fake or misidentification. They're like, oh, okay, well, I was wrong. I'm human. What do you expect? Okay, what else? I also saved a bunch of things. Okay, that's for the river. That's like Lake Champlain and everything else like that. Yeah, but before we get too far away, there's something else I also wanted to bring up, is that over in the western part of the United States, there. I was trying to think it. I wanted to watch something that talked about this to try to remember what the river was called. Well, there's one river along the western coast of the U.S. Not western coast, but at least the western part of the U.S. Some parts in California and nearby states around there, it was all connected as one solid river. But in the past, they would start making dams at sections and stuff like that, and sectioning off the river and having their own little areas and stuff like that. Each of these areas also apparently had their own lake monster. and a lot of times the shape was varied differently or varied slightly. But the one that was consistent was this very long body with a very long mouth, possible teeth, and like these big, strong the two front flippers and stuff like that. And there are stories of these things, popping up all along these lakes after they started damming it up. And they're like, oh, what's this? What's this? Well, the speculation of what those actually were is that because their shape is very similar to another creature, a creature that I mentioned earlier by accident, because I actually want to bring it up later here, was that it actually might have been a sturgeon. There are there are sturgeons that did live in the lake when it was a solid lake, but now it's in all these in the river. But now these little sections have now trapped sturgeons that were there, and now people are now misidentifying them as a monster when they really are just just a plain old sturgeon. Now, sturgeon are a pretty big fish. They can get really big, especially in the olden days of them telling stories of having like 10, 12, maybe 15-foot long sturgeons. But now the unfortunate thing is that it's very rare to see one that's even bigger than like 6, 7 feet. And that's still even pretty big, but unfortunately, they used to be bigger. Because the unfortunate thing with sturgeons is that they have a very long time before they can reproduce. I don't remember the exact number offhand, but I think it's like somewhere between like 20 to 35 years before they can actually reproduce. Where like most fish, they can reproduce many eggs, like only maybe within like the first few years or so, maybe a little longer of of living. While sturgeon have to wait a very long time before they can. So that's the one problem, that people fish them when they're not mature enough, and then they don't lay eggs, and and so there can't be more offspring, and hopefully, and unfortunately, some of these fish are having a tough time coming back into nature because, again, we humans, we suck, and we unfortunately have damaged too much stuff to where some stuff's irreversible, and stuff is getting close to being irreversible. But thankfully, there are people around there that are trying to keep the sturgeon alive with hatcheries and try to keep, and hopefully keep it around for so that someday we see these videos of these monster-sized sturgeon yet again, because sturgeons can live a long time, and if the sturgeons have lived long enough to be in the time of the dinosaurs, and they can grow to those sizes, then well, they won't be as big, but they'll be able to grow to decent sizes even today. So what do I think of Champ? I believe Champ's real. The picture itself is enough for me too, because obviously back then you can't fake that, and just by looking at it, I really don't think it's a misidentification. It's clearly a living creature, just on how it looks and everything like that. Like, yeah, sure, there are some branches, logs, and stuff like trees that are in the river that they can have a very wonky shape. That's how they work. I just don't think that's what we're dealing with right here. I believe we're dealing with a real life flesh and blood creature, and so I hope like we do get some better evidence of it, and people will at least start taking these a little bit more seriously. But again, stuff in the water is a lot harder to find than stuff on land, unfortunately. And I think that is gonna be it. Right now we're at like 53 and a half minutes, which is pretty good, honestly. I mean, mentioned the western, lake monsters and how most of them are probably just some form of sturgeon, but very cool. I've always loved Champ. Champ's always a fun one, and I hope to someday be able to get up to Lake Champlain, and obviously, it would be cool if I saw it, but like maybe just for like a chance or something like that. But you never know, because a lot of people go up like Lochness. A lot of people go up to Lake Champlain. I'm hoping like, come on, let me see. It's like big money. Let me see. See monster, stop. And so that'll be my case for me. All right. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed this episode. I keep an eye on the Facebook page, facebook.com/cryptidtalk, for for the poll of what you'd like all vote for the next episode to be about, and then we'll go from there. And yeah, so this is your first time here. Welcome. I hope you enjoyed yourself. And hopefully you like enough to hit that little subscribe button right there and hit the bell icon for any notifications. And of course, likes and comments, and shares, all that stuff helps me out, helps with the algorithm and stuff like that, and for me to get more well known out there and everything. And I would like, because our goal right now is to try to hit 100 subscribers by the end of the year. So we're at, actually, you know what? I actually talked to a coworker today, and I think he subscribed to the channel. So let me take a quick little peek to see where we're at right now. And yep, yeah, we are at 31 subscribers right now. So we're about a little less than a third of the way there. So let your friends know, let family members know, coworkers, passersby. Hey, random person over there, listen to this podcast. Do something like that. Of course, don't be too upfront about it. Be like, come like, hello, good sir. Have you heard about this educational podcast? And then you tell them about it. Also, if you or someone have seen anything creepy, any scary stories about any sort of cryptid you've seen, Bigfoot, Mothman, a lake monster, sea monster, a reptilian humanoid, fish person, mermaid, anything. If you've ever had any sort of creepy or any sort of cryptid encounter, it could be something that was long, it could be something that was short. Send it my way. You can email me at cryptidtalk91@aol.com. I haven't gotten any emails yet, but of course, I may not have reached the people who have had any sort of encounters yet. And if you are worried that I might judge you, scrutinize you, or make fun of you, or anything like that, don't. I've listened and read to a lot of true people who claim that these stories that they said are true, and a lot of people have seen some really crazy things. Things that they probably wouldn't be able to think of themselves unless it happened to them. So tell me your stories, or send people who have seen something, send them my way. If you've got a picture or a video of something, share it with me. I would love to see it, because I'm hoping at some point to where we get enough of these emails where I can actually have some episodes of me just reading stories out to people, and just going and then talking about them and then read the next one. That's what I'm hoping, at least. That's at least the plan. But of course, that to happen, I need accounts emailed to me first. So so yeah. But even if you haven't, it's okay. Don't make up a story or anything else like that. Just, you haven't seen anything, that's fine. If you do know someone, or you have seen something, let me know. cryptidtalk91@aol.com. I would greatly appreciate it, because it would be a lot of fun for me to spend my lunch at work reading people's stories and enjoying myself and taking my way away. It's like, I'm at work, but I'm doing something cool. Yeah, stories. And that's what I'm that's what I'm hoping. Let's see, I mentioned that. Follow the Facebook page, facebook.com/cryptidtalk. Obviously, if you're on the Facebook page, on the YouTube channel, so hit subscribe. Subscribes and all that stuff really do help me. Makes me, it gets me reach out to other people as suggestions. So, help me out, and I would greatly appreciate it. And I think that'll be it. So I hope everyone had a good day, and I hope to have a good safe weekend. I will report back and see if anything happens on Saturday. But if not, then it is what it is. But that's the name of the game. Something doesn't always happen when you go out into the woods. But I hope everyone stays safe. I care about you all very much and very deeply. And of course, remember, keep your ears and eyes open for the creepiness in store, because you never know what you'll find outside of your door. This has been Cryptid Talk with Michael Madden. Have a good day, everyone. Stay safe.